Shay Delgado was mopping the driver's lounge at 4 in the morning when the whole board behind her went red. Every load. Frozen, she didn't need to turn around to know. She could feel it in the room. A driver near the coffee machine had his radio up, cussing at a route that wouldn't hold. She leaned on the mop. Told him to take the Route 9 spur, skip the on-ramp, catch the frontage road past the grain silo. He tried it. It cleared. He keyed the mic and said, "Delgado, you're a lifesaver." And the shift lead, walking past, said, "Just clean, sweetheart." She didn't argue. She wrung the mop and moved to the next tile. An hour later, the owner came down. Wade Aldercott stood in the middle of the floor and told 12 drivers loud, "Dispatch is for people who trained for it, not the girl who empties the ashtrays." 12 men heard it. Nobody said a word. And the St. Aubert contract, $2.4 million, insulin and IV stock for 3 hospitals, was going to die at 6 a.m. if those pallets didn't move. In her locker, under a folded coat, there was an atlas, cracked spine, her father's handwriting in pencil on every page. She looked at it a long moment. Then she shut the door. If you've ever been judged by your dress instead of your heart, this story is for you. Before we go on, subscribe and comment the town you're watching from. I want to see how far this run travels. Now, let me tell you about the girl and the road. The yard at Aldercott Freight Lines sat on the north edge of Cobb Hollow, Vermont, where the valley pinched down and the wind came off the ridge like it had somewhere to be. In summer, it was gravel dust and diesel. In winter, it was a sheet of gray ice that ate boot heels and pride in equal measure. Shay had worked there 4 years. Night dock clerk. Lounge cleaner. The one who stayed. She was 26. She'd been coming to truck yards since she was 6. Back then, she rode shotgun in her father's cab, a paper cup of cocoa going cold in the holder, watching Manny Delgado read a storm off the color of the sky. He'd point through the windshield. "See that green under the gray? That's not rain, mija. That's ice looking for a place to land." And he'd be right. He was always right. He drove these roads for 30 years and never put a truck in a ditch until the one night it mattered most. But that's later in the story. Stay with me. Shay knew the yard the way other people knew their own kitchen. She knew which loading dock plate stuck in the cold and needed a boot heel on the left corner. She knew the coffee machine ran weak after the 3rd pot and you had to double it. She knew the drivers by their footsteps in the hall. And the drivers knew her. Not loud. Quiet. A man would slow at the dock and say, "Lo, Delgado, they got 89 shut past the quarry?" And she'd tell him yes. Take the old dairy road, gates unlocked, till March. And he'd tip 2 fingers off the brim of his cap and go. None of it was on paper. None of it counted. That was the arrangement, and Shay had stopped fighting it a long time ago. Or she told herself she had. That night the cold came in early and mean. The forecast said the front wouldn't arrive till noon. The sky said otherwise. By 2 a.m., the flag on the pole out front had gone stiff and stopped moving, the way it does right before the freezing rain starts. Shay stood at the window with her cleaning cart and watched the first pellets tick against the glass. Not snow. Ice. The kind that glazes a road in 10 minutes and turns a hill into a wall. Behind her, the office lights burned. There was a meeting going on that she wasn't invited to. There never was. Inside that office, Wade Aldercott had the St. Aubert contract spread across the table like a trophy. Renewal night. $2.4 million a year. Medical freight, insulin, saline, IV stock, the things hospitals in 3 counties needed to open their doors in the morning. 40 drivers had their jobs riding on that paper. If Aldercott landed the renewal, the winter was safe. If they missed the delivery window at 6 a.m., the client walked, and the contract went to a bigger outfit 2 states over, and 40 families found out in the spring. Wade's son Grant was in the room too. 28, logistics degree framed on the wall of an office he hadn't earned yet, being groomed to take the whole thing over. Grant had spent the evening looking at the same weather Shay was looking at. And he'd said the smart thing. Dad, pre-stage the trucks. Load them tonight, run them out to the county line now, park them close to St. Auber before the front hits. If we wait for the mapped route in the morning, we're betting on the interstate staying open. In this? That's a bad bet. Wade waved it off. The interstate does not close. We have run that route for 11 years. The system routes it, the trucks follow it, the freight arrives. That's what a system is for, son. You don't hand the schedule to a feeling. It's not a feeling. It's the radar. The radar said noon. The radar's wrong. Look outside. Wade didn't look outside. That was the whole man right there. He didn't look outside. So the trucks stayed in the yard, loaded but parked, waiting on a morning launch and a route that a computer promised was fine. Grant lost the argument, and lost his ride home too, because by the time the meeting broke, the hill down into town had already glazed, and his car sat useless on the slope by the gate. He came back into the building stamping ice off his shoes, and for the first time in 4 years, the owner's son and the girl with the mop were in the same building at the same hour, with nothing to do but wait out a storm. He found her in the lounge. She was pulling the trash and relining the cans, moving quiet, not looking at him. He stood in the doorway like he wasn't sure he was allowed in his own building at that hour. "You're still here," he said. "Somebody's got to be." He watched her a second. On the wall behind her, the big dispatch monitor glowed. Every lane on it had gone from green to yellow to that hard warning red while the meeting ran long. He'd been watching those colors change all night and feeling something cold settle in his stomach that had nothing to do with the temperature. "Can I ask you something?" he said. "Off the record." She looked up then, wiped her hands on the cloth at her belt. "You're the boss. Everything you ask is on the record. Not tonight." He nodded at the screen. "If those trucks launch on the mapped route at 4:30, straight interstate, like the plan, what happens?" Shay looked at the map a long moment. Then she looked out the window, where the ice was ticking harder against the glass. Steady now, a sound like sand poured on a drum. "Depends who's ahead of you," she said. "Meaning what?" "Meaning the interstate's a funnel. One jackknife up on the grade past the reservoir, and everything behind it stops. Doesn't matter how good your trucks are. You're parked on a hill in the dark with the freight going nowhere and the road closing behind you." She said it flat. No drama, like reading a grocery list. "That's what your dad's betting won't happen. It happens most every ice storm I've seen. And I've seen a few." Grant sat down slow at one of the plastic tables. He was quiet a while. "You know the roads," he said. Not a question, he'd heard the drivers talk. Everybody had. "I grew up in a truck," she said. "That's all." She went to the machine and made coffee. Doubled the grounds. Because it was the third pot. She poured 2. His without asking how he took it. She'd seen him at the counter enough mornings to know. Black, no sugar. Hers she made a certain way. A splash of the powdered creamer, then a shake of salt. Just a pinch. A trucker's trick from before her time. Her father's trick. Something about cutting the bitter on coffee that's been on the burner too long. She handed Grant the black one and kept the strange one for herself. And he watched her do the salt and almost said something and didn't. "Thanks," he said instead. "Don't thank me, it's the bad pot." He drank it anyway. It was in fact terrible. He drank all of it. And somewhere in the drinking of that terrible coffee, at a plastic table at 3 in the morning while the world iced over outside, the first centimeter closed between them and neither one of them noticed it happen. That's how the real ones go. You don't feel the first one. You only ever feel it later, looking back, trying to find where it started. At 4:15, Wade came down to launch the convoy. He walked the floor like a general. 12 drivers pulled on gloves and checked their manifests. The trucks out in the yard sat with their engines already turning over, exhaust standing up straight in the frozen air, headlights carving cones out of the falling ice. It was, Shay had to admit, a thing to see. 12 rigs loaded with medicine, lined up nose to tail, ready to run for 3 hospitals that needed them. When it worked, this was a beautiful business. Men moving the things people needed, through the night, through the weather, so a sick kid in a county hospital had her insulin at breakfast. Shay had loved this business her whole life. That was the part that hurt. Mapped route, Wade told the lead driver. Interstate all the way. The system has you. 6 a.m. at St. Aubert receiving. Don't make me call the client. Grant stood at the edge of the floor and said, "One more time, quiet, Dad." And Wade didn't even look at him. The convoy rolled out at 4:30. 12 sets of taillights climbing the on-ramp into the dark. They died at 4:55. Shay was back at her cart in the hallway when she heard it come over the driver's channel. The little radio one of the men had left on the counter turned low. A voice, tight, "We got a jackknife. Up on the reservoir grade. Rigs across both lanes. We can't get by and we can't back up. There's traffic stacked behind us clear down the hill." A pause full of engine noise and wind. "And they just closed the ramp behind us. State police. The interstate's shutting." Exactly what she'd said. Word for word. She didn't feel any satisfaction in it. She felt sick because she knew what came next. And what came next was that the medicine wasn't going to make it and 40 people were going to lose their jobs over a hill Wade Aldercott wouldn't drive to look at. The floor filled up fast. Wade came out of his office with his tie loose, Grant behind him. The night dispatcher on shift, a nervous kid named Pruitt, was hammering the keyboard, feeding the stuck convoy new routes off the system. "Reroute them," Wade snapped. "That's what the software's for." Reroute, Pruitt rerouted. The system swung the convoy off at the next exit, down onto the county roads, and picked a path through the valley towards St. Aubert, green line on the map. Clean? Everybody stared at the green line like it was a lifeline. Shay looked at it from the back of the room, over the heads of the drivers, and her stomach dropped. Because the green line went straight down County 14, across the Cobb Culvert. And she knew the way you know your own name, that the Cobb Culvert washed out at 3 inches of water. And it had been raining ice and sleet for 2 hours, and that culvert was already gone. The computer didn't know that. The computer had never driven it. The computer saw a road on a map. Shay saw her father's pencil, 30 years ago, writing 4 words in the margin of an atlas. Cobb Culvert washes at 3. She should have kept her mouth shut. She knew that too. She'd kept it shut for 4 years. But there was medicine on those trucks, and there were men she'd handed coffee to sitting in the dark on a dying road, and something in her would not sit still for it. She stepped forward, out of the back, into the light of the floor where she was not supposed to be. "That road's gone," she said. The room turned. Every head. Wade's, last and slowest. "The culvert on County 14, Shay said. Her voice held, but only just. "It washes at 3 inches. There's been ice and rain on that watershed since 2. It's underwater right now, or it's about to be. You send them across it, and you don't lose the load. You lose a driver." She swallowed. "You want them off the interstate, that's right. But not there. Turn them back the other way and take them over Cobb Ridge on the old logging grade. It's steep and it's ugly, and the GPS won't show it as a road. But it's high, it drains, and it stays open in ice when everything in the valley floods. You've got maybe 2 hours before even that closes. If they move now, they make it." For a second, 1 second, the whole floor just looked at her. Some of those drivers had radioed her for exactly this kind of thing 100 times in the dark. But that had always been quiet. In the hall. Off the books. This was the floor, with the lights on, and the owner standing right there. And Wade Aldercott laughed. One short, ugly breath through his nose. "You can't route what you never drove, sweetheart," he said it slow, so everyone got it. "So hold the mop." The room went dead. Somebody's boot scuffed the floor. A driver looked at the ground. Grant's jaw tightened, but he didn't speak. His father, the owner, in front of the whole floor, and the son said nothing, and he would hate himself for that silence longer than he knew. Shay felt the heat climb her neck. She'd been put back in her place in front of 12 men who knew she was right. There is a particular kind of quiet that lands on you in a moment like that. It gets into your chest, and it stays. She'd felt it before. She knew how to carry it. She stepped back, picked up the handle of her cart, and went back to the hall where the girl who empties the ashtrays belonged. The atlas was 30 feet away in her locker. She thought about it. She left it shut. Now here's where the night turned, and it didn't turn because anybody had a change of heart. It turned because the road did what the road does, and the machines couldn't argue with it. Pruitt sent the trucks across the Cobb culvert. The lead driver got to it first, came down the county road in the sleet with his brights on, and found no road. Just black water, moving, where the culvert used to be, the guardrail already leaning into it. He stood on the brakes and slid, and stopped 10 feet short, and sat there shaking with the medicine behind him, and the water in front of him. He keyed the mic. His voice wasn't tight anymore. It was scared. Yard, the culvert's gone. 14's gone. She was right. It's underwater. We're stopped. Back on the floor, the green line on the monitor was still glowing green. That was the thing that finally got to Grant. The computer said the road was fine. The road was a river. And the software rerouted again. Cheerful, instant, and sent them down the next county road. And Shay from the hallway called out without even coming back in, "That one floods at the dairy bottom. Tell them no." And it flooded at the dairy bottom. One by one, the machine's roads failed. Every reroute the system found was a valley road, and every valley road in Cobb Hollow was going under, and the only person in the building who knew which ones drained and which ones drowned was standing in the hall with a mop because the owner had told her to. Wade stood over Pruitt's shoulder, and for the first time that night, he didn't have anything to say. The trucks were bleeding fuel and time out there in the dark, idling on dead roads, the deadline crawling towards 6 a.m., the medicine going nowhere. $2.4 million in 40 jobs sitting frozen on the shoulder of a road no algorithm could save. And Grant Aldercott looked at the red board, and looked at the green line that was a lie, and looked at his father who wouldn't look outside, and he crossed the floor, past the drivers, past his father, down the hall to where Shay stood with her cart. He didn't do it loud. He did it the way she'd taught him without meaning to, quiet, off the record. He stopped in front of her, and he kept his voice down, so it was just the two of them. "I was wrong not to back you," he said, "out there. I'm sorry. I don't have time to make that right the way I should." He drew a breath. "I've got 12 trucks dying on the road, and a hospital that opens at 6. The system can't route this. You can. I'm asking you, not the owner's son. Me, Grant, get those trucks to St. Aubert, and I'll answer for it. Whatever it costs." Shay looked at him a long moment. The heat was still in her chest from the floor. Part of her wanted to hand him the mop and let the whole thing sink. Let Wade watch his system drown. Let the man learn. It would have been fair. But there was medicine on those trucks. And a sick kid at breakfast doesn't care whose pride is on the line. "It's not on a server," she said. "What you need?" "It was never on a server." "Then where is it?" She looked past him, down the hall, to the wall of gray lockers. "My dad's," she said. "Come here." She walked to her locker, spun the dial with cold fingers, opened it, moved the folded coat, and took out the atlas. It was a Rand McNally Road Atlas, the big kind, the pages soft as cloth from 30 years of a working man's hands. The spine was cracked clean through and held with tape gone yellow. She set it on the little shelf under the light and opened it, and for the first time all night, in front of another person, she let someone see it. Every page was written on. Pencil, mostly, sometimes pen, in a blocky, careful hand. Not the printed roads, the ones between them, the ones that weren't on the map at all, drawn in by hand. Arrows, Grades marked with little numbers. And the notes, everywhere, in the margins and up the sides, and squeezed between the county lines. Cobb Culvert washes at 3. Old Dairy Road, gate unlocked Nov Mar. Logging grade drains good. Watch the switchback at the top. Ice sits there. Bridge at Weller closed by County Deck 1. Don't trust the sign, it's out. Fuel at the Sunoco only. The other pumps dead water in the tank. 30 years of a man reading a country the way Wade Aldercott's computer never could. A map of the roads under the roads. Written by hand, by a driver, for driving. And it existed nowhere else on Earth. Grant stared at it. He had a logistics degree. He had spent 4 years around the best routing software money could buy. And he was looking at a taped-up book that knew things no database knew. Because a database had never been scared on the dairy bottom at 3 inches of water. And Manny Delgado had. This is, he started, and didn't finish. This is the roads, Shay said. The real ones. She turned a page. Found the ridge. Ran her finger along a pencil line that swung up and away from the drowning valley, up onto the high ground, over the top, and down the far side into the flats where St. Aubert sat. Here, Cobb Ridge, over the logging grade, down the Weller side, past the closed bridge. There's a low water crossing half a mile up, he marked. You'd never find it. It's not signed. Down into the flats. Straight into St. Aubert receiving. She looked up. It's 22 miles of road that thinks it's not a road. I can get them across it. But you understand what I'm telling you. There's no signs. There's no GPS. The only place this route exists is in this book and in my head. Somebody has to be in that cab telling the lead driver every turn, every grade, every crossing, in the dark, in the ice, live, or it doesn't work. Grant was quiet a moment. Out on the floor, his father was still barking at a computer that couldn't hear him. The board still burned red. The clock read 4 minutes to 5. Then you're in the cab, Grant said. Shay went still. No, she said. You take the book. I'll teach you the turns. There's no time to teach me 22 miles of unmarked road in an ice storm. You just said it. It's in your head. He held her eyes. It has to be you. And there it was, the thing she'd been standing next to her whole life, and never once let herself pick up, behind the wheel. On her father's road. The one place she'd told a driver, only hours ago, she was not allowed to be. Not allowed. She heard herself say it, flat, the way she always said it, so nobody would ask the next question. She almost said it now. Not allowed. She almost put the book back and shut the locker and picked up the mop, but the trucks were dying. The medicine wasn't moving, and a man was standing in front of her, the owner's son, asking her, Shay Delgado, the girl who empties the ashtrays, to do the one thing she was born to do and had spent 4 years pretending she couldn't. Out on the floor, Wade's voice rose. Where is the reroute? Somebody give me a road. And Grant Aldercott turned his head toward his father's voice, then back to Shay. And he made his choice before she made hers. Get your coat, he said. You're navigating. I'm driving the lead. We go now, out the back, and my father can fire me at 6:01 when the freight's already unloaded. A muscle worked in his jaw. But it's on the road right now, Shay. It's on the road, or it's on us. Shay Delgado looked down at her father's atlas, open under the locker light. The pencil lines climbing the ridge in a dead man's hand. She could hear his voice like he was in the room. See that green under the gray? That's ice looking for a place to land. She closed the book, held it against her chest with both arms, the way you hold a thing you're not going to set down again. Cobb Ridge, she said. Grab the keys to the lead truck. And when your dad asks who's on nav, I'll tell him it's the trucker's daughter, Grant said. Because it is. She pulled her coat off the hook, and the two of them went out the back door into the ice, toward 12 trucks and a road that only one of them knew, with the clock at 5 and the interstate ceiling shut behind the whole convoy. And neither one of them had said out loud yet the one thing that could stop it all cold. The reason she'd told that driver not aloud. The reason she hadn't touched a wheel in years. She hadn't told Grant why she was barred from the road she was about to drive. And she wasn't going to, not yet. The back lot was a sheet of black glass under the dock lights, and the 12 trucks idled in a line that curved around the building like a sleeping animal. Shay could feel the cold in her teeth before she'd made it 10 steps. The kind of cold that doesn't announce itself. It just arrives in your lungs and stays. Grant had the lead truck's door open before she reached it. She climbed up without help. The Atlas already open across her knees before the door swung shut, and the cab smelled like every cab she'd ever ridden in. Diesel and stale coffee, and something faintly metallic. The smell of distance. She breathed it in once and said nothing. Grant keyed the radio. All units, this is lead. We're moving on a new route. Sit close on the CB and don't deviate. Roads are going to get narrow and they're going to get worse before they get better. Stay at 40 feet. Anybody can't hold that gap. You tell me now. He waited. 12 clicks came back. He released the brake. We go. The truck eased forward, and Shay was already reading the map by feel as much as sight. Her finger tracing the line her father had penciled in 2 different winters. The fork past the grain elevator, not the county road the GPs wanted, which she knew sat in a bowl that collected meltwater from the Cobb Creek watershed every time the temperature got above 20, and then dropped again. She'd watched her father mark it. She'd asked him why he bothered, since every other driver took the county road. He'd said because being the only one who knows something is worth more than a degree, and she'd been 14 and hadn't understood him then. She understood him now. At the silo, take the fork left, she said. Not the county road. The county road is flooding. Grant glanced at the GPs mounted on the dash. It was insisting on the county road in a calm, automated voice, and he reached over and silenced it without asking her to confirm. That small thing, the quiet trust of it, landed somewhere in her chest and stayed. They took the fork. Half a mile past the silo, the headlights swept across it, a power line down across the county road ahead, wire draped over the guardrail and sparking in the sleet. Would have caught the whole convoy across the hood. The GPs had no idea it existed. The GPs never would. Grant exhaled slowly. He didn't say anything for a moment, just drove. Then, you called that before we could see it. I didn't call the line, Shay said. I called the road. She turned a page. There's a culvert at mile marker 9 on the old dairy road. My father wrote 3 inches beside it in the margin. That means it washes at 3 inches of standing water. Check your gauge when we get close. If the runoff's over the ditch line, we come off at the fence post and add 4 minutes. Don't let anyone follow until I say. The radio crackled. Back at the yard, a voice she recognized as the night operations supervisor was calling for a convoy status update. And underneath it, fainter, another voice. Wade's. Grant reached for the CB. Shay put 2 fingers on his wrist. Not hard. Just enough. Don't answer yet, she said. Once he knows, he'll order us back. And back is the county road. Back is that power line. He set the handset down. The other 11 trucks ran dark behind them. A string of headlights on a road that wasn't on any map they carried. She could feel the weight of them in her chest like they were tied to her ribs. 12 trucks. 12 drivers. $2.4 million of insulin and saline riding over a ridge her father had penciled by hand. Mile marker 9 coming up, she said. Slow it. I want to see the ditch. Grant eased off. The lead truck's brakes sighed. Ahead, the old dairy road dropped into a shallow bowl, and the headlights caught water where water shouldn't be. Not much. A sheet of it, glassy, running slow across the low spot. Gauge, she said. He looked at the little pole staked in the ditch, the one nobody but a road crew would ever notice. Water, at the second mark. 2 inches, Grant said. Under 3. We cross. She didn't take her eyes off the road. Straight through the center. Don't slow in the water, don't gun it. Steady. The truck rolled down into the bowl. Water hissed under the tires and spread away in two dark wings. For 1 second, the whole cab went quiet. Just the engine and the slap of the wet, and then the front wheels caught the far grade and pulled them up out of it and onto dry gravel. Behind them, one by one, the convoy followed the line she'd drawn. 11 sets of headlights dipped into the bowl and climbed out again. Grant let out a breath he'd been holding. My father wrote 3 inches, Shay said. We had 2. If we'd waited 20 minutes, we'd have had 4, and that culvert would have taken the road out from under the third truck. He knew that in 1994. It's still true. How does a man know that? He drove it. Every winter for 30 years. He didn't read it off a screen. He learned it with the truck. She turned a page. Manny's handwriting crawled up the margin in soft pencil. Some of it smudged where his thumb had rubbed it 1,000 times. A server knows the road exists. My father knew what the road did. The CB crackled again. This time it was clearer. This time it was him. Lead truck, this is Aldercott. Come back. Grant's jaw tightened. He glanced at her. Not yet, she said. The heater blew warm across the cab. Somewhere back at the yard, a man in a heated office was watching a screen show him 12 trucks going the wrong way, and he had no idea the wrong way was the only way left. Let him watch. Let him sweat it. She'd earned that much. She reached into the paper sack wedged behind the seat and took out the thermos she'd filled in the lounge before they rolled. She poured a cup. Cream, then 2 sugars, then a splash more cream, the way a man had taken it for 30 years without ever once fixing it himself. She handed it up to Grant. He took it. Drank. Made a face. That's a lot of sugar. That's how my dad took it. Habit, she looked out the window so he wouldn't see her face do anything. You don't have to like it. He drank it anyway. All of it. That landed somewhere, too. The road climbed. The dairy fields fell away behind them, and the trees closed in, black spruce heavy with ice. The branches bowed almost to the ground. This was Cobb Ridge proper now. The logging grade. 22 miles of it. No houses, no lights, no signal. Just the road her father had loved, and the sleet coming down harder, ticking on the windshield like sand. There's a bridge ahead, Shay said. Weller Bridge. County closed it in the fall, the deck's bad, but there's no barricade you can trust in this weather. Signs blow down, so we don't go to the bridge at all. Then where? Half a mile before it, there's a low water crossing. Old Ford. It's not signed. It's not on the GPS. My father marked it. Weller Ford, gravel bottom, good under a foot. She traced it with her finger. We come off the road at the second cattle gate. You'll want to drive past it because it looks like nothing. Don't. Trust the gate. Grant didn't argue. Somewhere in the last hour he'd stopped arguing. He just drove, and when she said turn, he turned. That was the thing she kept coming back to. Later, he didn't need to see the proof first. He decided she was the proof. The second gate came up on the right, exactly where the atlas said, half swallowed in a snowbank. Grant slowed and swung the rig off the road and down a track that didn't look like a track, and the headlights found the creek at the bottom, wide and black and moving, and the gravel ford cutting a pale line across it. Under a foot, she said. Same as the culvert. Straight and steady. They crossed. The water climbed the tires to the hub and no higher. On the far bank, the track climbed back to the road above the closed bridge, and as they came up over the lip, Shay looked left and saw it. The Weller Bridge in the sleet, its deck sagging, one guardrail already gone into the creek. If they'd trusted the road, they'd have found that at 40 miles an hour in the dark. Grant saw it too. He didn't say anything for a while. That's 3, he said finally. The line. The culvert. The bridge. 3 times you saw it before it was there. I didn't see it. He did. I'm just reading his handwriting. No, Grant shook his head. He wrote the notes. You're the one who knows which one matters right now. In this sleet. With these trucks. That's not reading. That's driving. You're driving this whole convoy from the passenger seat. She didn't have an answer for that, so she looked at the atlas. The CB came alive, loud, angry, lead truck, you will respond. Who is on navigation? Grant, is that you? Answer me. Grant reached for it. This time, she didn't stop him. He keyed the mic. This is Grant. We're off the interstate. We're taking the Ridge Road. We'll make St. Auber by 6. A pause. Static, then Wade's voice, low and dangerous. The voice he used on the floor when he wanted the whole room to feel small. There is no Ridge Road. It's not in the system. Who told you it was open? Grant looked at her. She shook her head. Once. Small. Not because she was ashamed. Because she knew what would happen the second the name landed. He keyed the mic anyway. Shay Delgado, Grant said. Shay's on navigation. She's had us right every mile. There's a power line down on the county road that would have caught us across the hood, and a bridge out at Weller that would have killed the third truck. Neither one was on your system. She's the reason we're still moving. The static hummed. Put the freight girl on the radio, Wade said. Grant handed it to her. She looked at it a second. Then she keyed it. I'm here. You are not authorized to be in that cab. You are not authorized to route company freight. When those trucks come back, they're not coming back, Shay said. There's no back to come to. The interstate's sealed behind the jackknife, and the county roads are underwater. Forward is the only door left, Mr. Aldercott, and forward is this road. I'm sorry. I know you don't want it to be me. But it's me or it's the contract. Silence, a long one. She could picture him in the office, the St. Auber pages spread across the table, 40 drivers' jobs in a stack of paper, and no software left that could save any of it. Then the CB went quiet. He didn't answer. He just left it hanging. He hung up, Grant said. No, Shay said. He's letting us run because he's got nothing else. That's not the same as letting me. Don't confuse them. Grant's phone buzzed in the cup holder. The screen lit. A name. Vivian. He glanced at it. Let it ring. It buzzed itself still and lit again a minute later, and this time a message glowed up under the glass. Something with the word Daddy in it, and worried and please just come home. And Shay looked away from it the way you look away from a stranger's mail. You should get that, she said. I'm driving. I can read a road. I'm not going to read your phone. But that's someone who's supposed to matter, and you're letting it ring. Grant kept his eyes forward. Vivian's father sits on the board. Her and me, it's been decided since we were kids. Everybody signed off. It's a good match. It's the smart match. He said it flat, like a manifest. I've never once been asked if I wanted it. The road tilted upward. The grade steepened. Shay felt the truck lean into the climb and heard the engine dig for it. And she looked down at the atlas and knew what was coming a mile before it did. Downshift, she said. Now, before the grade. Not on it. You want the pull before you need it. His hand went to the shifter. She'd already reached for it. Habit 30 years of watching a man do it. And her glove closed over the back of his, over the shifter, and neither one of them moved it away. His hand under hers, the cold leather warming between them. And the truck found its gear and hauled up the grade steady and sure. They held there a beat longer than the shift needed. Then she took her hand back and turned a page like nothing had happened, and her heart was going like a jackhammer, and she hated it, and she didn't. That's the last easy grade, she said, and her voice came out level, which surprised her. The next one's the reason nobody drives this road. The trees opened. The land fell away on the right into a black nothing that was Cobb Hollow 1,000 feet down, and the road bent along the shoulder of the ridge in a long climbing curve sheeted in ice. Cobb Ridge grade. Her father's grade. The one he'd said the whole route was built to reach. The sleet had turned to freezing rain. It came down in sheets and glazed the road as fast as it landed. And the lead truck's headlights showed her a surface like polished glass hung on the side of a mountain. Slow, she said. Slower, there's no rail on the low side and the drop's the whole hollow. Follow the crown. Keep the tires on the high center where the water runs off." Grant slowed. The truck crept up the grade. She watched the drive wheels through the mirror on her side. Watched them start to spin, catch, spin again, and she felt the back of the rig shift a hand's width toward the black edge and go still. "Grant," her voice changed, "you're losing the back. I've got it, you don't. Ease off the throttle. Don't brake. Let it settle." He eased off. The truck slowed more, and the drive wheels found ice under the crown, and this time when they spun, they didn't catch. The rig slid. Slow, sideways, the trailer swinging its weight downhill toward the drop, and Shay felt the whole thing start to jackknife under them in silent slow motion. 26 tons walking toward the edge of the hollow. "Grant, you can't hold it from where you're sitting," she said, and she was already unbuckling. "You've never driven ice. You learned logistics in a building. I learned this grade before I could drive a car. Let me take the wheel." "You're not." He fought the slide, both hands wide on the wheel, the trailer still creeping. "The road's closed to you. You said you're not allowed. You never said why." "Because I lost my license on this exact grade." It came out of her like something torn loose. 4 years ago. This ice, this road, this curve. "Pull the brake and listen to me, because in 10 seconds we're in the hollow." He pulled the brake. The rig shuddered and hung there, half sideways on the glass, the trailer's rear wheels a yard from the edge. She looked at him. And she told him, fast, flat, the way you tell a thing you've never once said out loud. "My father had a heart attack. Right here. Middle of the night, worse ice than this, and there was no time to wait for anybody. So I put him in the sleeper and I drove him down Cobb Ridge to get him to the hospital, because I knew this road, and the ambulance would have taken an hour to even find us. And halfway down I lost the back on this same curve and put the truck in the ditch. He lived. He lived because I got him down. But the report said the driver of record lost control, and the driver of record's insurance and his pension and his 30-year record all rode on that report. So I told them I was driving without his knowledge. I took the ban. Suspended CDL 4 years, so his record stayed clean, and he kept his pension until the day he died." Her voice cracked once, and she pushed through it. "The road I know best is the one that took my license. I have not driven since. And I'm about to, because there's no one else in this cab who can, and there's insulin behind us for 3 hospitals. So slide over." Grant stared at her. 1 second. 2. Then he let go of the wheel and climbed across, and she climbed under him, and her hands closed on the wheel her father had taught her on. And something in her that had been shut for 4 years came awake. "Okay, Dad," she said. So quiet only she heard it. One more time. She feathered the throttle. Not power, patience. She let the drive wheels find the one dry thread of crown under the glaze, walked them into it, and when the trailer wanted to swing, she steered down into the slide instead of away from it. The way you're never taught and always have to learn, and the 26 tons straightened out under her hands like an animal that finally recognized its own name. The rig climbed. Slow, dead steady, the tires singing on the ice, and Shay took her father's road up over the top of Cobb Ridge with a $2.4 million load and 11 trucks reading her taillights, and she did not once look at the drop. At the summit, the road leveled. The freezing rain thinned. And below them, far down the far side, she could see the sodium lights of the valley and the county highway, and, past it, the low glow of the town where 3 hospitals were waiting for stock that hadn't come. "Coming down's worse than going up," she said. "Engine brake, low gear, and don't touch the service brakes on the grade or we'll slide the whole way. Grant, watch how I do it. You're going to need to know this someday." He watched. She brought them down the north face of Cobb Ridge 1 gear and 1 breath at a time, and the atlas lay open on his knee now because her hands were full, and he held it for her and read her the notes off the pages. Second switchback tightens, gravel spilled on the apron, and between them they drove a dead man's road down into the light. They came off the grade onto the county highway at 10 minutes to 6. The CB lit up with the other drivers, all of them at once, a wall of voices. The lead truck at the bottom, the whole string coming down safe behind. Somebody whooping. Somebody just saying her name over and over, Delgado, Delgado, you beautiful thing. And Shay laughed for the first time in what felt like years. One short, cracked laugh, and kept her eyes on the road. St. Auber's regional receiving dock sat on the edge of town, a long-lit bay behind the biggest of the three hospitals. Shay swung the lead truck in at 4 minutes to 6 and backed it to the dock the way her father had shown her. One pull, no correction. The trailer kissing the bumpers, soft as a word. The other 11 came in behind her and lined the lot. The receiving manager came out with a clipboard and a flashlight and a look on his face like he'd already written the loss off in his head. He shone the light on the manifest. Then on Shay, climbing down out of the cab in her dock coat, the atlas under her arm. "You're not going to believe the roads these came over," Grant said, dropping down beside her. "But they're all here. Every pallet. 6 minutes to spare." Behind the manager, a phone was ringing on the dock wall. He answered it, listened, and held it out. "It's your yard," he said. "Owner's on the line. Wants a visual on the delivery. He's got the whole floor patched in." Grant took the phone, but he didn't put it to his ear. He turned it so the little camera faced the dock, the 12 trucks, the pallets already rolling off on jacks into the warehouse, the hospital crew swarming the freight, and he said, loud enough for the phone and the drivers and the whole cold morning to hear, "Delivered. Full load. All three hospitals covered. 5:54 a.m. He turned the camera on Shay. And this is who did it. Shay Delgado routed it and drove it. Over Cobb Ridge, on ice, on a road that's not in your system, out of an atlas her father wrote by hand. "You want to tell St. Auber we lost the contract? We didn't. She saved it. Say her name back to me before you say anything else." Static on the line. The whole floor, back at the yard, dead silent on the other end. Then Wade's voice, thin over the phone. "Bring the trucks home." And nothing else. He hung up. Shay let out a long breath into the cold. 6 minutes. They'd made it by 6 minutes. The sky over the ridge was going gray. Somewhere on a radio in the warehouse, a news voice was saying the interstate was closed in both directions. Indefinitely, jackknife and ice. Do not travel. The door had shut behind them. They'd come through the only one left, and she'd been the one holding the map. Grant stood next to her at the edge of the dock while the freight rolled in. He started to say something, opened his mouth. She watched him find the words, and then set them down, unsaid, like a man laying a tool back on a bench because it wasn't the right one yet. "What?" she said. "Nothing," he said. "Not here. Not yet." And that unsaid thing sat between them warmer than anything he could have said. They ran the empty trucks home as the sun came up. The dispatch floor at Aldercott Freight the next morning was full. Word travels in a trucking company faster than freight. 40 drivers who hadn't been on the run had heard about it from the 12 who had, and they'd come in on their day off to stand around the counter, and the red board behind them was all green now. Every load moving, the storm gone north. Wade Aldercott came out of his office with the contempt already loaded. Shay saw it in his walk. He'd had all night to decide the story, and the story was going to be luck. "I'll say this once." Wade started. "We got lucky. A back road happened to be open. And it didn't happen," Grant said. He came through the crowd of drivers and set 2 things on the counter. The St. Auber manifest, signed, stamped, 6 minutes early. And the atlas. Its cracked spine, its taped corners, Manny Delgado's name in a boy's block letters inside the cover from some year in the 60s. "This is what routed the run," Grant said, and his voice carried the whole floor. "Not luck. Not the system. The system sent us into a down power line and toward a bridge that's in the creek. This did. 30 years of one man's notes, read by the one person left in this company who knew how to read them." He looked at her. Shay, come up here. She didn't perform it. She just walked up in her work coat, the same coat she mopped in, and stood where the drivers could see her. And she didn't smile for them, and she didn't shrink either. She warned you at 4 a.m., Grant said to his father, but really to the room. On this floor. You told her to hold the mop. She was right about every mile of it. A downed line she called before we could see it. A culvert she knew washes at 3 inches. A bridge she took us around in the dark. And the Cobb Ridge grade. In freezing rain, no rail. 1,000-foot drop. She drove that. Herself, to save your contract. A driver near the back, one of the 12, still in his coat from the run, started to clap. Slow, then another. Then the whole floor of them, 40 pairs of hands. And it wasn't polite and it wasn't for show. It was drivers who knew exactly what that grade meant, clapping for someone who'd beaten it. Wade's face worked. She drove, he said, and there was an edge in it. A last card. She drove company freight. She's suspended. She hasn't got a license. That's a violation that could. Ask her why she's suspended, Grant said quietly. Go on, ask her, in front of everyone, why the best driver you ever had on your yard hasn't got a license. Because I heard it in the cab, on that grade, and I think this room deserves to hear it too. The floor went still. Shay looked at Wade, then at the drivers, half of whom had known her father, and she told it a second time, plain, no crack in it now. My dad had a heart attack on Cobb Ridge 4 years ago. No time for an ambulance. I drove him down myself and put the truck in a ditch, and he lived. The report needed a driver of record who lost control. If that was him. He lost his pension and his 30-year clean record on the last winter of his life. So I said it was me, driving without his knowledge, and I took the ban. 4 years. I'd do it again. She looked at Wade steady. So no, I'm not sorry I drove last night. I know that road better than anybody alive. Because I paid for it. You can fire me. But those hospitals got their insulin, and 40 men in this room still have jobs this morning, and both of those are because of a road you said I couldn't route. The phone on the counter rang. The dock manager back at St. Aubert had said the renewal call would come at 8. It was 8. Wade picked it up on reflex, his floor, his contract. And a voice came through loud, because half the room was leaning in. The St. Aubert account director, brisk, morning fresh. Wade, quite a night. We've reviewed the delivery, 6 minutes under deadline with the interstate closed. Frankly, we'd written it off. Who ran that for you? We want the name for the file. Wade's mouth opened. Closed. Grant leaned toward the phone. Her name's Shay Delgado. She's standing right here. Delgado, a pause on the line. Any relation to Manny Delgado? Manny used to run our northern stock, years back. Best winter driver we ever had on that lane. His daughter, Shay said. A short laugh, warm, over the speaker. Of course she is. Wade, we're signing the renewal. 2.4, 3 years. On one condition, and it's not negotiable, she runs your winter routing. All of it. The person who reads that country like her father did. That's the deal or there's no deal. Are we agreed? Every driver on the floor was looking at Wade Aldercott. His own men, watching him, be handed the choice. Agreed, Wade said. One word. It cost him everything he had, and he set it down and said nothing after it. And the silence that followed was the sound of authority changing hands. Near the wall, a young woman in a good coat had been standing quiet the whole time. Vivian. Shay hadn't seen her come in. She watched Grant a moment longer, watched him standing next to Shay, watched where his eyes went and stayed, and then she crossed to him and said something low, just for him, but she didn't say it cruel. I've known since we were 16 that you were somewhere else, Vivian said. I just never knew where. Now I do. She almost smiled. Go on, Grant. Our fathers can be disappointed together. They're good at it. And she pulled her coat straight and walked out with her chin up, and the approved match closed like a door, easing shut. No slam in it. The floor started to break up, drivers clapping Shay on the shoulder on their way past. An old-timer taking the atlas up off the counter and turning the pages soft as a hymnal, saying, "Look at that. Look at what Manny did. I'll be damned." Grant crossed the floor to her one last time. He'd been holding it since the dock. She could see that now. Every centimeter of the whole night stacked up behind his eyes. "I'm not going to say the big thing," he said. "Not standing in a dispatch office at 8 in the morning. You deserve better staging than that." He almost laughed at himself. "But I'll say this one. Run the winter board with me. The whole thing. You read the roads, I'll read the contracts, and between us this company moves freight nobody else can move. I want you next to me on it." Every season, he took a breath, and the next part was the part that cost him, and he paid it out loud where his father could hear. "And I don't care what my father thinks that means. I've spent 28 years doing the smart match, the safe route, the approved thing. Last night you taught me the approved route was underwater. I'm done driving it." Shay looked at him, at the atlas going hand-to-hand through the drivers, at the green board, at the man who'd silenced a GPS on her word alone in the dark. "That's a lot of sugar," she said. He laughed, really laughed, and understood exactly what she meant. And she stepped in and let him put his arms around her. Once, close, in front of all of them, in her mop coat. And neither of them said the bigger words, because they didn't need saying yet. The door of them was left shut on purpose. There'd be time. There'd be whole winters. Spring came the way it comes to northern Vermont. All at once, the ice going off Cobb Hollow in a week of brown, roaring melt. The ridge road opening up green. Shay Delgado had her license back. It had taken a lawyer and the truth, and Grant standing in a county office swearing to what she'd told him on the grade. But the report got corrected in the end. Driver of record, amended, and when they lifted her suspension, they lifted the old lie with it. And Manny Delgado's record read clean and true for the first time in 4 years. No fault. A daughter who drove a dying man off a mountain and never should have taken the blame. The wound closed in daylight, filed and stamped, the way she'd never once let herself hope it would. The atlas hung in the dispatch office now. They'd taken down the big laminated server map, the one that showed roads that flooded and bridges that were gone, and in its place, in a plain frame, hung the cracked spine Rand McNally with its taped corners, open to Cobb Ridge, the pencil lines and the margin notes visible under the glass. Every driver who came on for a winter run stopped and read it. That was the point of it hanging there. It was 6 in the morning. The board was quiet. Shay came in off the dock and hung her coat and fixed 2 coffees at the counter the way she always had, one black for herself and one with cream, then 2 sugars, then a splash more cream. She handed the second one up to Grant at the dispatch desk. He took it and drank it and didn't make a face. Hadn't in months, because somewhere along the way he'd stopped tasting the sugar and started tasting the reason for it. He just said thanks and got back to the board. Wade came through on his way to the office. Older this spring. Quieter, he nodded to the room, and to Grant, and last of all, briefly, to Shay. "Delgado," he said. "Mr. Aldercott." That was all. That was the whole of it, and it was enough. A man who'd learned, late and hard, to say a name he'd once refused to say. He went into his office and shut the door. Shay stood a moment at the framed atlas, coffee warm in her hands, and looked at her father's handwriting under the glass. Cobb Culvert washes at 3 inches. Old Dairy Road, gate unlocked Nove through March. Wellerford, gravel bottom, good under a foot. A whole life of roads. Learned the only way roads can be learned, by driving them in the dark when it mattered. Being the only one who knows something is worth more than a degree. She'd been 14 when he said it, and she hadn't understood him then. She understood him now. And out past the bay doors the ridge road ran up green into the morning, open, waiting, and it belonged, the way it always had, the way it always would, to the ones who'd actually driven it. Comment the town you're watching from. I'd love to know how far this run has traveled.